The biggest mistake I see hot climate gardeners make every year is waiting until the weather cools down to start their fall vegetables. By then, you're already behind. If you want a productive fall garden, many of your coolest season crops actually need to be started indoors during August. I know that sounds backwards because it's still blazing hot outside, but that's exactly why we start them indoors. It protects young seedlings from extreme heat, heavy pest pressure, and summer diseases, while giving them several weeks to grow into strong transplants. In this video, I'll show you every crop I start indoors in August so they're ready to go into the garden the moment cooler temperatures arrive and it's time to plant them in fall. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Jerra. I'm a lifelong gardener and the owner of a seed and plant nursery in Orlando, Florida. I specialize in rare, heat-tolerant, and tropical crops that you will not find at your average garden center. I help gardeners grow more food year-round by choosing the right crops for extreme conditions like high heat, rain, and pests. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, hit subscribe so you never miss a video. If you missed part 1, I'll link it below in the description. It covers everything you can plant outdoors right now. Today in part 2, we are moving indoors to talk about seed starting. If you want to grow your own large bulbing onions completely from seed instead of buying transplants, August is the month to get started. Onions are one of the slowest crops we grow from seed, so they need a long head start indoors before they're ready to transplant into the garden in late fall. One thing I really want to point out is that not all onions grow the same. If you live in Florida or another warm winter climate, you need to choose short day onion varieties. Gardeners up north grow long day onions because those varieties need the extra long days of summer before they'll form bulbs. Down here, like in Florida, our onion season is completely different. We plant onions in the fall, grow them through the winter, and harvest them in spring. So short day onions are the varieties that naturally bulb during our shorter winter day lengths. Some of my favorite varieties include Texas 1015, which produces large, sweet yellow onions with excellent flavor and nice uniform bulbs. Red grano is another fantastic choice if you enjoy sweet red onions for slicing onto burgers, sandwiches, and salads. Early white grano is one of the earliest onions you'll harvest and has a mild, sweet flavor. And if you're looking for something a little different, Boratana produces small, flattened Italian onions that are famous for caramelizing beautifully and are absolutely incredible roasted or pickled whole. When I start onions, I actually sow them pretty densely. I'll either sprinkle the seed over the surface of a 4-inch pot, or if I need a lot of transplants, I'll fill a standard 10 by 20 tray with drainage holes using a sterile seed starting mix. Sprinkle the seeds over the surface, lightly press them into the soil, and gently water everything in. The biggest key to good germination is keeping the soil consistently moist. Onion seeds have a hard seed coat that softens with moisture, so allowing the tray to dry out can really reduce germination. Once the seedlings emerge, I move them under grow lights. I actually have my grow lights plugged into an inexpensive Amazon smart plug that's programmed to turn on automatically at sunrise and off at sunset, so I never have to remember to flip the switch. Once the seedlings develop their first true leaf, I begin fertilizing once a week with a gentle fertilizer like Fox Farms Grow Big, and I'll link all of the supplies I use down below in the description. When the seedlings reach about 6 to 8 inches tall, I'll gently separate them and transplant each one individually. Unlike many vegetables, onions tolerate this surprisingly well, so don't worry about pulling them apart. They won't get transplant shock. And if starting onions from seed isn't really your thing, don't worry. In October, my annual short day onion transplant bundle pre-sale starts, so keep an eye out for that if you'd rather start with ready to plant transplants. If you enjoy soups, potato leek soup, roasted vegetables, or adding a mild onion flavor to your cooking, now is also the perfect time to start leeks from seed. I grow the classic American flag variety, which develops long, thick white stems with a mild sweet onion flavor that's much more delicate than regular onions. Leeks are planted and grown almost exactly like bulbing onions. I start them indoors now, then transplant them outside around the same time as my onions later on in fall. The biggest difference is patience. Leeks take even longer to mature than bulbing onions, often requiring 5 to 7 months before they're ready to harvest. But once you've tasted fresh, homegrown leeks, you'll understand why they're worth every bit of the wait. If you've only ever grown the standard green onions from the grocery store, I want to encourage you to branch out and try some of the incredible Japanese bunching onions, often called negi. Japan has been cultivating bunching onions for centuries, developing unique varieties with outstanding flavor, texture, and cold tolerance. Just like bulbing onions, I start bunching onions indoors now by sowing the seeds densely in trays or small pots, then separating and transplanting the seedlings later on in fall. One of my favorites is Ishikura, which produces exceptionally long white shanks with almost no bulb at all. It's one of the most popular Japanese bunching onions and is fantastic for soup, stir fries and grilling. Redbeard adds beautiful reddish purple coloring near the base of the stalks, making it just as attractive in the garden as it is on the dinner plate. Akiba develops thick, sturdy stems with excellent flavor and is prized for producing large harvests over a long season. And the stalks have this like hot pink kind of purple color. And just so you're aware, if you've ever tried growing Redbeard or Akiba, their color develops more strongly with cooler weather. So if you're in a really hot climate and it's been hot for many days in a row, they won't develop that color as intensely, but if they grow throughout the wintertime and you get some cold fronts, that color will start developing. And then there's Shimonita, which is probably the most unique of them all. Instead of being harvested young like most green onions, it's traditionally grown to a much larger size, kind of like a mini-sized leek. When cooked, it becomes incredibly sweet and tender, making it one of Japan's most famous heirloom onions. If you enjoy Asian cooking, I highly recommend growing at least one of these varieties. The last allium I like to start this month is chives, and I actually recommend growing both regular chives and garlic chives because they each bring something different to the garden. Regular chives have the classic mild onion flavor that works beautifully sprinkled over baked potatoes, eggs, soup, salads, and dips. Their attractive purple flowers are also edible and do an excellent job at attracting pollinators. Garlic chives have flat leaves instead of hollow ones, and as the name suggests, combine the flavor of garlic with a hint of onion. They're a staple ingredient in many Chinese and Korean dishes and produce beautiful white flowers later in the season that pollinators also love. Both are incredibly easy to grow, come back year after year in warm climates, and are among the first herbs at harvest, like a cut and come again style plant. Now let's move into one of the largest groups of cool season vegetables, the brassicas family. This includes crops like broccoli, cauliflower, Romanesco, cabbage, kale, and Brussels sprouts. I start every one of these indoors during August because they need a solid 8 to 10 weeks to develop into sturdy transplants before they go outside. Young brassica seedlings are very sensitive to heat. If you try to grow them outdoors right now in temperatures above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, they will get stunted and might not ever recover from that. I only recommend starting them indoors and then transplant when temperatures finally begin cooling, like dropping below 85 degrees Fahrenheit, which for me in Central Florida is usually sometime in October. For traditional heading broccoli, the Cicco is one of my favorite heirlooms. It produces a nice central head followed by weeks of delicious side shoots after the main harvest. But honestly, if you've struggled growing these big supermarket style broccoli heads, I want you to try sprouting broccoli instead. Varieties like Piracicaba, Calabrese, and early purple sprouting don't focus all their energy on producing one giant center head. Instead, they continuously produce dozens of smaller broccoli florets on long tender stems, very similar to broccoli rabe. That means you can start harvesting much sooner, and instead of getting one large harvest, you're harvesting fresh broccoli over many weeks. Piracicaba Brazilian sprouting broccoli is by far my personal favorite. I love it so much, I dedicated a whole YouTube video just for it, which I'll link below in the description. I like it because it's incredibly productive, extremely heat tolerant compared to many other broccoli varieties, and just keeps sending up new shoots after every harvest. Early purple sprouting broccoli has beautiful purple, maroon florets and stems, while Calabrese is a classic Italian heirloom that's been loved for generations. Cauliflower has a reputation for being difficult, and that's true. It's much more sensitive to temperature fluctuations than broccoli, which is why getting the timing right is so important. By starting your plants indoors now, they'll mature during the cool weather they actually prefer instead of trying to develop heads during mid or late spring. The goal is to harvest cauliflower during the winter or very early spring before the heat comes back. The heat will cause bolting and poor quality heads. My absolute favorite cauliflower is an heirloom called Violetta Italia. It produces spectacular deep purple heads colored by the same anthocyanin pigments found in blueberries. The heads can become absolutely enormous, sometimes nearly basketball sized, but like other red or purple colored vegetables, they turn green during cooking. That's completely normal. If you're looking for a traditional white cauliflower, I highly recommend Fujiyama. It was bred with improved heat tolerance compared to many older cauliflower varieties, making it one of the better choices for southern gardeners. Now let's talk about one of the coolest vegetables you'll ever grow, Romanesco. Technically, Romanesco is considered a type of cauliflower, although many people describe its flavor as somewhere between broccoli and cauliflower. Its lime green heads are made up of a mesmerizing spiral pattern that follows the Fibonacci sequence, making it one of nature's most incredible examples of natural geometry. It's honestly one of those vegetables that almost looks too beautiful to eat. The flavor is milder and slightly nuttier than traditional cauliflower, and I think it has a sweeter taste with a firmer texture. If you've never grown Romanesco before, it's definitely worth trying just for the conversation it creates in the garden. For traditional heading cabbages, I recommend Golden Acre if you want a dependable green cabbage, or Mammoth Red Rock if you're looking for a beautiful purple variety that's excellent for slaws, fermenting, and fresh salads. Then you have Savoy cabbages, which are easy to recognize by their beautifully crinkled or savoyed leaves. I think they have a sweeter, more delicate flavor than standard cabbage, and my favorite is Purple Savoy, which is just gorgeous once cooler weather brings out its rich purple color. Now here's a little trick I've learned over the years. If you've struggled growing those large, tight cabbage heads, try growing what I like to call loose leaf cabbages. That's not an official gardening term, it's just my way of describing cabbage varieties that don't require waiting months for a perfect head to develop in the center. But anyways, what I'm referring to are Napa cabbages or a loose leaf cabbage called Sensopai. And my two favorite varieties of Napa cabbage, I know I'm not going to pronounce them correctly, is Michihili and Kogane. Sensopai, though, is probably one of the most underrated vegetables that I grow. It forms a huge bushy plant with broad cabbage-like leaves that, in my opinion, has the best cabbage flavor of all of them. The biggest advantage is that these varieties can be harvested almost like loose leaf lettuce. Instead of waiting months for one giant head, you simply harvest outer leaves as you need them, and the plant keeps producing more over the course of several weeks. That means earlier harvest, less risk from insects and diseases, and a longer harvest period. Plus, you don't get stuck with one giant head of cabbage and you don't know how to use it all up at once. Kale is probably one of the easiest cool season vegetables to grow from seed, and it's also one of the longest producing crops in my winter garden. Instead of harvesting the entire plant at once, you'll be picking leaves continuously for several months. If you're looking for a dependable heirloom, lacinato, also called black Tuscan or dinosaur kale, is hard to beat. It's my favorite variety for soups, sautés, and kale chips because the long dark blue-green leaves have excellent texture and flavor. If you want something similar but even more vigorous, Black Magic is essentially an improved lacinato type kale with broader leaves, better uniformity, and outstanding cold tolerance. And if you want your garden to be just as beautiful as it is productive, grow scarlet kale. As temperatures cool, the leaves develop stunning deep burgundy and purple coloring that almost makes it look like an ornamental plant while still producing delicious harvests all winter long. Out of all the brassicas we've talked about today, Brussels sprouts are definitely the most challenging for hot climate gardeners. They require the longest growing season with cool weather to produce those tight little sprouts along the stem. If young plants experience too much heat, they're much more likely to become stunted or bolt before ever producing a worthwhile harvest. That's exactly why I start mine this early. They need every bit of that extra lead time indoors so they're ready to transplant as soon as the weather begins cooling in the fall. With all of that said, don't let anyone tell you they can't be grown in Florida. I've successfully grown and harvested Brussels sprouts right here in my Zone 10A garden in Orlando. They simply require good timing and a little extra patience. The nice thing is that every brassica we've talked about today gets started in exactly the same way. I sow 2 to 3 seeds per pot or container that is filled with a sterile seed starting mix. I recommend using at least a 4-inch pot, but honestly, bigger is even better. I often use solo cups with drainage holes cut out of the bottom because they provide much more room for root development. One thing I've noticed over the years is that the size of your brassica's transplant is directly related to the amount of root space it has available. Bigger containers equals bigger root systems. Bigger root systems equals healthier transplants, and healthier transplants almost always produce larger heads and an earlier harvest once they're planted in the garden. If they get root bound though, that messes up everything and your harvest is going to be smaller than what it could have been. So that's why I say give them some extra large pots. After the seedlings germinate and reach a few inches tall, I thin them down to the single strongest seedling by simply snipping the extras off at the soil line with a pair of scissors. Try not to pull them out because that can disturb the roots of the seedling you're keeping. From there, I grow them indoors under lights until they're sturdy, well established, and the weather outside is finally cool enough to plant them. August is still too hot to direct sow seeds for greens outside, but you can get a head start by sowing seeds indoors so they're ready to transplant in September. I like to sow various Asian greens now and then direct sow all the traditional cool season greens like lettuce, arugula, and spinach later on in fall when the temperatures cool down. Asian greens have a much higher heat tolerance, so I get started with those first. Bok choy is probably the easiest Asian green for a beginner with crisp white stems and tender green leaves that work in everything from stir fries to soups. Komatsuna is similar but a little more mustard forward in flavor and even faster growing. Tatsoi forms a gorgeous dark green rosette and makes one of my favorite salad greens and a near perfect substitute for spinach. And Tokyo Bacana looks like and is used like a loose leaf lettuce, but it has a much higher heat tolerance. There are a ton more unique and wonderful Asian greens that will add an enormous variety to your garden and plates, but these are the ones I would start with now in August. Just sow them indoors to protect them from the harsh elements outside right now by sprinkling a few seeds in a 4-inch pot or 72-cell seed trays filled with sterile seed starting mix. They should size up and be ready for a transplant in September. So that wraps up part 2 of my August garden guide. Next week's video that goes live on August 9th is all about how I prepare my garden for the fall season, including cleaning up summer beds, terminating cover crops, rebuilding soil fertility, and getting everything ready for what I consider the best growing season of the year. If you want your biggest harvest this fall and winter, you won't want to miss that video. To make planning even easier, I've put together a free printable August planting checklist with all the crops I covered in this series. You can download it using the link in the description. And just in case you didn't watch my part 1 of the August garden guide, I did mention this month's Grow Along With Me challenge, which is 50% off all squash seeds over on my website with code SQUASH50, and it's valid through the very end of August. I chose squash because now is one of the best times of the year to direct sow them for productive fall harvest. As always, only one discount code or offer can be used per order. If you'd like to garden alongside me every season, be sure to check out my Seed Club subscription. The next delivery ships soon in September, so if you want to be included, sign up very soon. All the details and subscription options are linked in the description. And finally, my annual strawberry bare root presale starts next month. If you'd like first dibs, head over to the strawberry page on my website, which is linked in the description, and click the notify me when available button. You'll receive an email the moment the presale goes live, so you can reserve your plants before they sell out. And thank you so much for watching, everyone. As always, happy gardening.